Hello, thank you for joining us. You get an upload of this interaction. We're talking about TV3 Ghana on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and then also through the handles of 3FM 92.7 on all their socials as well. But of course, you also will get links through 3news.com. But today we're here to have an interaction with somebody who has been of immense contribution to the security of our country, not only on the side of the academics or education, but also in ensuring that he enriches what the conversations are in ensuring we have a secured state. And we're talking about Professor Emmanuel Kwesi Aning. He is the Director, Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research for the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. But here I have to say that thank you for speaking to us and also joining us. In the meantime, the first question will be, we've seen the number of inroads being made by the current IGP. I also will call him the new IGP because he just got confirmed, but had been in the role in acting capacity. What do you make so far of what he's done so far, seemingly gaining public confidence?
Well, I think it sends a very simple signal that though institutions matter, leadership and the type of leadership is equally important. That the vision, the integrity, the drive, the panache of the individual who leads an institution can bring about the transformation that one wants to see in an institution and its ability to deliver on its vision and mission. So that what we are seeing in the last probably 5 months or so is a dramatic shift in the manner in which we've seen actually leaders across all public institutions perform. But more importantly, in terms of the Ghana Police Service, I mean, there is a decided shift in how people perceive law and order now. There's a lot of work still ahead of the Inspector General of Police. There are a lot of people who are going to resist him and hope that he fails. But many more people, ordinary people like myself, are driven to back him, to advise him, to critique him when it's necessary, but also to pray for him and to fast for him. Because what he's doing touches the very core of our understandings of what policing is about the power dynamics in this country, and bringing those who think they are above the law to book. Now, that is a manner in which people are going to resist him. They are going to seek his destruction. But I've got a very simple message for those people. They will not succeed. Precisely because when you are honest, when you are upright, when you are driven by integrity, yes, people will seek to destroy you, but you can't destroy his integrity. And that level of integrity brings a fearlessness in applying the law equally. And I think we need a couple of other categories of individuals who will flout the law and need to be arrested. A couple of businessmen who are very noisy and think they're above the law, and certainly a couple of very powerful politicians who have been flouting the rules. And they don't need to do anything supremely special. They may be using sirens that are banned, because under the law, I think it's His Excellency the President, the Vice President, the Chief Justice, the Speaker of Parliament, and a few other people who are authorized by law to use, sirens in traffic. So we need to see all these people who are flouting this very simple rule, to be pulled over, cautioned, and the law used. And I think certainly if we're able to get these extra categories of people roped in, then we'll begin to see a very decisive qualitative change.
You seem to have outlined the various perspectives, but it looks like there is an enormous task ahead of the gentleman. What are these difficulties or hurdles that he has to surmount?
It's almost insurmountable. It's an almost insurmountable task. We've allowed the lack of respect for law enforcement and rules in this country to fester so much that they've gotten a life of their own. So people are talking about the challenges that the Ghana Police Service as an institution faces. And people will tell you about the numbers, people will tell you about logistics. I think they've been promised some helicopters. But I don't think those are the biggest challenges. It's about attitudinal and behavioral change. First, within the Ghana Police Service itself, changing the mindset of the 33,000 personnel and saying that we share the dreams and the vision of this Inspector General of Police. Now, and I've said this very publicly, and I want to take this opportunity to repeat it. When you have an institution that over time has encouraged behaviors that undermines its own institutional character, in which a few officers have rented uniforms, guns to criminal gangs, in which within the institution itself, there are a sizable number of officers whose behavior colludes with and undermines the ethos of the organization. Then an Inspector General of Police who seeks to bring about change, that is fundamental. And you can see the public responses to this. I think Dr. Abochi talks about that with this IGP, then impunity has a short lifespan. And he's beginning to demonstrate that. So when we see the responses to the Bempes and whatever he's called, people whose behavior over time has contributed to a culture of impunity, and because they felt that they are above the law, they cannot be dealt with, are now being dealt with. So there's a two-pronged resistance to him that is beginning to manifest and will manifest over time, but I think he will win. One relates to the institutional, the calcification of rot within the institution that needs to be decalcified, identification of individuals or the networks that allows crime and the flouting of the rules to go on. Because you see, it creates avenues for profit making, for rent-seeking activities by the officers. Flouting the rules to say, look, you've jumped the red light, even when it's not true. Intimidating of what will happen to you if they take you to the airport police station, for example. Okay, knowing that it has a certain reputation for violence, that when they demand money, you are so afraid that you will pay. Then we are talking about those in the society who think they are above the law. So when the Bempes and the Wales or whatever it's called are now dealt with. Because you see, people are saying, oh, but why was the bill denied, blah, 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 blah. The real question is, what is the reputational damage to Ghana when people make false assertions about the levels of security that ordinary people enjoy? Okay, so it's a bigger conversation over and beyond an individual whose behavior has brought disrepute to this country. And I think the boldness and the ability of the IGP and his new team to say, look, we are not here to introduce anything new. We are just here to do what has been in existence for decades. And I think Abochi's point about impunity being given a short leash really captures the dynamic of the changes that we are seeing.
That said, it will mean that there are going to be some periods where there's going to be some thin lines that he has to make some strong decisions on. Great tests. Where are the tests going to come from?
Well, I mean, the thin line, and I think it's going to be a very razor-sharp thin line. One relates to the nature of political violence in this country. And as we move towards 2023-24, we are going to see two types of political violence that I think we need to start understanding it, doing the risk assessments, and based on those risk assessments, using the law to intervene. Now, if the violence that we have seen in the nomination and eventual approval of MMDC is an indicator of the possible violence that we will see when the crown in the jewel is competed for. That is the candidate for each of the two parties. Then we are going to see something that may not look very nice, both in practice and on paper. And therefore, the manner in which the service signals that it is willing to use that intelligence to identify those who want to use their political affiliations to commit crimes, atrocities, intimidate their opponents, and to stop that in the tracks before party congresses, then I think we are getting somewhere. But that's going to be a razor-thin line. But I will tell you this, Roland. I think when you are driven by integrity, and you are driven by an honest desire to bring things under control, then when you take decisions that are neutral, predicated on the law, even those who the law has caught in its net recognize that what you've done is above reproach. And I think that is what is fundamentally different with what we are seeing now. Now, I was telling Mr. Sander from City TV a couple of weeks ago that sitting on the sidelines speaking about my own optimism and happiness about the changes that we are seeing, and hoping that by being given these platforms, I can contribute to encouraging him and for people to send that hashtag that we stand with the IGP. That I, as an ordinary man, expressing my hopes and aspirations.
I've known you for quite a lengthy period of my career, and you're not one who would readily put his reputation on the line for anyone. Why are you putting your reputation on the line for the new IGP?
Because I've known him for quite some time, and I've had several conversations with him. And it's not just about conversations, but it's about shared visions and shared values. I mean, I sit in a position myself where the stress and the tensions of having this conversation is something that I deal with on a daily basis. And I think when I have had some pretty sensitive interviews that have had monumental blowbacks, but you are not cowed because you are doing what is right. Actually, the blowbacks proves that you've touched on certain sensitive toes. And it's just not in Ghana. I mean, I've just written a monograph in which I've been fairly critical of the role of France on this continent, particularly in Mali. And I mean, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, very senior French officials called this institution in Denmark. And I said, look, we don't agree with what Kwesi has written. Can we have a meeting? And I said, I wouldn't dignify you with a meeting. If everything French scholars had written about Africa, our diplomats responded or called French academics to say, look, how dare you write this? Then our diplomats would never work. So with the greatest disdain, I turned it down. But when you do something right, even those who are the purveyors and protectors of democracy and free speech and intellectual independence would want to fight you. So I've staked my reputation on the line because we need to back him to succeed. We need to encourage him. Now, there are people who are saying, oh, but the same people who are praising you will also criticize you. And I think they've they've missed the boat. Solid friendship, a belief in what somebody stands for, is best when you are also bold to be objective in your criticism and providing suggestion. So there's one suggestion that I want to give to the Inspector General of Police already. One is that I think there's a new unit where people can report. There's this video going around. And I contacted this unit because of an incident I had. And the sheer rudeness of the response I got, impersonal, commanding, disrespectful. And I wrote back. But when we have a service that seeks public support and partnership, you don't give me a response that could be automated. You don't use a private number to respond to a complaint. And you don't write without a name that we are writing to you. Pick up. I'm not your dog. So those who are fronting for the Inspector General of Police, they themselves must have an attitudinal change in saying, Roland, look, you've got a problem, you've come to us, call this number, this is my name, I'm the officer dealing with it, and then blah, 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 blah. But this intimidating posture of ordering and threatening people to pick up your calls from a private number. How do I know it's not some gangster who is calling me and wants to locate where I live? So that is something that already he needs to step in to bring about change. But so far, so good.
Now, how are the processes of intelligence gathering, how tight and knit they need to be in ensuring that the operations are on hand to have the greater objective of curbing crime? How strong should they be?
I think you've used a word that has a terribly bad history in this country, intelligence. So I think there's a bit of confusion about what intelligence is. How do you take the raw data and then bring value to it and then design the options necessary for action? So I've always argued very strongly about the need for both, particularly operational intelligence, plus, strategic intelligence. Operational intelligence saying, okay, that at a strategic level, we've decided to give you, Roland, X number of bicycles. Now there's a horse unit, blah, 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 blah. But before we give you those resources as an input into the work that you do, what are the risk assessments that we have taken with respect to area A or B? What are the outcomes that we expect you to deliver? One of the things that I think hasn't been done for ages relates to tying in the inputs in terms of vehicles, bicycles, personnel, telephones, the use of petrol, electricity, water, buildings, and say that when we give you all these inputs, what are the outputs that we are looking for? So part of my hope and aspiration is that eventually we can, in terms of the regions, in terms of the, districts or whatever the designations are, be able to say what are we putting in as a country and what is coming out in terms of creating a much more secure environment for people to go about their business. And I always tease the Inspector General of Police that for me, my greatest wish and hope for him is that by the time he goes home, he should be able to walk down the street with Madame feeling confident and not looking behind him when he's an ordinary citizen. That is the best police service he would have given to us. Hands-on, proactive, using both technology and human intelligence and ability to identify and analyze challenges to be able to identify where resources and what type of resources must be allocated so that we'll be able to respond and then prevent crime.
A caution that has run through the conversations about how effective our IGPs can be or should have been in this Fourth Republic has always been how they are appointed and whether they can take the strong decisions when the time comes. But look, how does he navigate, the whole process of not offending his appointer or the appointing authority?
Roland, I've always said this, that the appointing authority is best served by delivering on your mandate. Let me probably go back and do a bit of history. I'm originally trained as an historian with archaeology. So security actually is very tangential, to what I was trained originally. If you remember, this particular president, His Excellency Akufo-Addo, has been very consistent in sending out one message in all the IGPs he has appointed. Please don't look at who is appointing you and what you think that appointing authority wants from you. Now, why is His Excellency the President saying this? My argument is very simple, that as candidate Akufo-Addo and opposing political parties, what do you call it? Those people who go jogging during electoral periods, keep fit, decided to jog in front of his house amongst all the roads in Accra. Now, there was a scuffle in front of his gate. Now, in any other jurisdiction, because he's a contending opposition leader, that Keep Fit group would not have been allowed to pass in front of his house because of the potential problem. Now, when the scuffle took place, the then head of the Nima police station claimed he didn't see it or nobody reported it to him. Now, that was a very serious failure of policing. My argument is that taught candidate Akufo-Addo a very big lesson. You need to create a police service that is fit for purpose, that will protect ordinary citizens, protect your opposing competitor. Okay? So create a level playing field in which everyone feels secure. But because of the history of policing, the excessive meddling, almost every IGP he has appointed, with the exception of this one so far, has been afraid in doing what ought to be done. Now, I will state this once more, that I think with this IGP, were he to arrest the other categories of individuals who are flouting the laws in this country, he would have sent this signal clearly, that this I will not tolerate. You will not be above the law, and neither will you flout this law under my watch. So I don't think it's a really difficult job. I don't think so at all. I mean, what is it that those of us who serve in public institutions, what should we be afraid of? I mean, were I to do an analysis of threats, crimes, whatever, I mean, this is a Ministry of Defense institution. So, should I lie? Should I refuse to say what is the obvious? So having integrity and speaking to the issues is actually a contribution to ensuring that things are done properly. So for me, I don't think it should be a problem for him at all.
There is currently a young man who is in prison remand, brandished a gun, and as a result of that is facing the law. There have been since then a number of videos that have come out about other public so-called persons who apparently on social media brandished guns. There's even a young man who decided within the perspective of the roads we have, went to the Opebia intersection, did a Fast and Furious kind of skit. But that also shows that young men are getting emboldened. They may have money, they have guns on them. What do we do with all this? Guns, people doing everything in impunity.
Well, Roland, there are too many guns in the system. And too many people having guns under dubious means. So once more, the people that I categorize as those who will oppose him are those who are brandishing guns and who are doing what we call fast and furious or whatever. And once more, I have a message for these people. You know, your days of impunity are numbered. And your days of impunity will come to an end. Because this country does not belong to those who flout its rules. It belongs to those who have a vision and a hope that I can be honest, law-abiding, and then make a genuine, legitimate contribution to our stability and survival, and then growth for the generations yet unborn. For those who think they've got money, congratulations, but please use that money properly within the remit of the law. You know, well, let me also make a final point, and there's an advice to the police service. When you arrest people, please don't take pictures of the arrested people in handcuffs and put them on your social media platforms. Precisely because until a court of competent jurisdiction has decided that they've committed a crime, by placing a handcuffed person onto your social media handle or creating an impression that the case is closed and sealed, you see, we lose that public support that we need in providing intelligence. Finally, I am happy with what we've experienced so far. As citizens, we need to continue to engage and to provide the information necessary. But I think, as Dr. Abuchi said, we are seeing the end of impunity. And that is why the hashtag, I stand with the IGP, must trend.
Well, it is always an experience speaking to you, great knowledge, and we always take many of them in our strides as well. Helps us in a line of work, but also having a bigger perspective as to where and what direction our country is going. But we'll see how we do about this latest conversation as it is. And thank you very much, Professor Kwesi Aning. And we've been having an interaction with the director for the Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research, the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, Professor Emmanuel Kwesi Aning. You get an upload of this. We're talking about TV3 Ghana, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And then also 3news.com or the handles of 3FM 92.7. That'll be it for now. Please make sure you join us next time.